relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Is the animosity real? Do you really dislike each other?
Oh, it's real. This is not for show. You know, she's a little bit, you know, she's new to the game and a little sensitive. She also thinks that she's extra special for some reason. But you know, when she beat Terry Harper, it was just natural for me to come for her because that's what I was coming for, right? I was coming for all the belts. That was just a natural progression for me. Okay, Terry doesn't have a belt anymore. So long, Baumgardner, I'm coming for you now. This is where it's at. So, you know, she didn't like that. But look, Greg, I did all that talking to get this fight done. I did all of that to get to this point where we are right now. And she didn't want to do that. She really wanted to make me wait. And she made that very clear to everybody, everyone. But look, it's September. So what? I announced this fight 6 months after she got the belt from Terry. And that was the goal, to get this fight made. No bullshitting, just get it done.
I would be very careful if I was her. The fact that she thinks that my power isn't something that she should watch out for. Every fighter should be aware of power, right? It's a respect thing. It's not even, it just comes down to respect. And, you know, at this point, Michaela has to build herself up. So we get this. But I know I'm the better athlete. My athleticism alone beats Michaela. This is a given. This is a given. I've been in sports my whole life. And to see somebody like Michaela, to me, she's average. She's just another person I have to get through. That's it. That's how I see it.
Hamadouche would have destroyed Baumgardner because Baumgardner wants to keep you at bay, right? She wants to keep you with that pawing jab and drops a big right hand. But Hamadouche doesn't allow you to do that. And we knew that. We knew that at some point Hamadouche was going to get us on the inside and we were going to have to know how to fight there because that's all she does. She comes forward, she has that aggressive, relentless Mexican style, really. And every opponent that's tried to keep her on the outside and box her has gotten pressed up against the ropes and caught at the end of her punches. And so we knew that we weren't going to do that. Alicia's no different. The one time Alicia got pressed and pushed on the inside was against Lenardatu. And she showed right then and there that she does not like it on the inside, that she does not know what to do there. I mean, she completely loses her cool. She goes everywhere. She falls everywhere. Hamadouche would have murdered her.
There's no love lost between the combatants. Alicia Baumgardner followed up these comments by saying, "We're going to find out if Regina George has a chance."
Who's Regina George?
It's George Michael's sister.
It's not George Michael's sister.
It's not?
No, it's the girl from Mean Girls.
The reigning WBC champion was quoted as saying, "When we are both gray and old, Mayer is still going to be having Alicia Baumgardner flashbacks." Baumgardner vowed, "When she is lying horizontal in the ring, Mayer will think back to the first time my name left her mouth, and she's going to wish it hadn't." I guess we're going to find out if Regina George has a chin. Not only will Mayer feel my power, but her descendants are also going to feel what I do to her.
Hit her so hard that her fucking ancestors roll over.
You may have noticed Michaela Mayer's anecdotes in reference to how Alicia Baumgardner handles a come-forward pressure fighter like a Maiva Hamadouche. In Michaela Mayer's humble opinion, she feels that a fighter like that, a fighter that likes to squeeze their opponents and overwhelm them with volume and aggression, she feels that Alicia Baumgardner doesn't like that pressure, doesn't like it mid-range to inside. Is that an insight?
Is that how she plans on fighting Alicia?
Referencing Alicia Baumgardner's lone defeat, the two-time WBO champion from Greece, Christina Lenardatu, a mid-range to inside fighter, an explosive one, a hard puncher. I'd wager a harder puncher than Michaela Mayer is.
The pitfall with a strategy like that is the fight that Michaela Mayer's thinking of. The fight she's referencing is from several years ago.
Approximately 4, way back when, in 2018. And it may be somewhat foolhardy to think that the 2018 version of Alicia Baumgardner is the same version that stands before us here today. It's safe to say that she might have picked up a trick or two since then. She might have learned from those weaknesses, those holes, and patched them up. Alicia herself added, "Not only will I take Mayer's belts, but I'll take everything from her. She'll be lucky if I let her keep her name. If I'm not haunting her dreams before the fight,
I will be after it.
if you come for the queen, you best not miss. On the bright side for Mayer, a loss to me will be the best result on her resume.
An errant mystery associated with this fight is how Michaela Mayer will approach it.
Will she so decide to box long range, keep the fight long and loose and on the outside, or will she so decide to invade Alicia Baumgardner's personal space, get all in her wheelhouse, mid-range to inside, and fluster her, thereby not allowing Alicia to sharpshoot box from the outside herself, Alicia Baumgardner being a capable outside fighter.
In my previous uploads, we've talked about what it is Alicia Baumgardner has to do in just this kind of a situation. What if Michaela Mayer tries to get froggy? What if she tries to get aggressive?
We've talked about what Alicia has to be wary of. What Michaela has to be wary of in that same scenario is if you go looking for a gunfight, you might fuck around and find one. And I'd wager that Alicia Baumgardner is a harder puncher than Michaela Mayer.
If you're thinking you're gonna up the tempo and up the volume to fluster her, well, what if she's ready for that?
And Michaela Mayer's a damn good boxer. Damn good boxer from the outside, damn good boxer and durable on the inside. But if you go trying to make this a gunfight, if you try to win this fight through strength of arms, which you might find out.
You ain't got the biggest guns at the gun show, sweetheart.
Alicia Baumgardner, at least in the past, hasn't proven to be as prolific a puncher as Michaela Mayer. Michaela Mayer does seem to throw more shots than Alicia does, but if you go forcing her into a fight,
If you force her to trade, if you go forcing the exchanges,
you're just making it that much easier for her to deliver her power shots.
Michaela Mayer referenced the Christina Leonardo fight and the pressure that Christina applied, but what she's missing is...
You ain't got the same physical dimensions as Christina Leonardo, if that's what you're thinking. If what you're thinking is you're going to put the squeeze on Alicia the same way that Christina did. Christina is actually a smaller target than you are.
Christina Leonardo's base style is something akin to what you used to see from Iron Mike Tyson in his prime.
She's a naturally heavier fighter than Michaela Mayer and a naturally heavier-handed puncher, but she's not as statuesque as Michaela. She's not as long and rangy.
Because Christina's not that tall, it's easier for her to move side to side, bob and weave, and get under sweeping hooks.
Slipping the jab, so on and so forth as she inches forward. Whereas with Michaela, it's a little different because she's taller. She is a bigger target.
September 10th can't get here fast enough.
In men's heavyweight news, Eddie Hearn had this to say. He says, Tyson Fury isn't the biggest draw in boxing. Anthony Joshua still is. But yes, he's a huge star. But I am loyal to AJ, and I think Fury knew.
I think he knew that when I was discussing signing him when he was 400 pounds.
When he was still on the comeback trail, when he was still on the rebound, before the Deontay Wilder trilogy, well before that, hell, before the Sefer Seferi and Francesco Pianetta fight.
Tyson Fury knew that Eddie Hearn was loyal to Anthony Joshua, and that might have influenced his decision to decide to go a different route, to fight for a different title against a different champion.
But you never know what could happen in the future, highlighting what may take place beyond Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Usyk. Should Anthony Joshua win, that opens the door, opens that conversation back up for Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury, presumably sometime next year, since Tyson Fury seems to be in the market for an opponent this year. They're talking about a Francis Ngannou fight. They're talking about a Thor Bjornsson fight. They're even talking about a Derek Chisora trilogy. And I don't know how many fights Tyson Fury has left.
How many fights does he have left with Bob Arum? How many fights does he have left with Frank Warren?
I don't think it matters too much how many fights he has left under his existing top-rank contract, assuming it still exists, because Tyson Fury can't enter the country. Until further notice, we have to assume that he's still banned from entering the good old US of A, based on his associations with suspected crime boss Daniel Kinahan, leaving only Frank Warren.
How many fights does he have left with Frank Warren?
Would certainly declutter the situation if Tyson Fury were, in fact, a network and promotional free agent. At this time, we don't know that he is. We don't know that he isn't. But what we do know is that Anthony Joshua is a bigger draw, worth a lot more money than Tyson Fury is. For a perspective, Frank Warren's historic purse bid for the Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte fight, approximately $41 million.
The biggest purse bid in the history of purse bids.
Purse bids relating to boxing. Well, Anthony Joshua got paid 2 times as much to box Andy Ruiz for the second time. This fight he's about to have, the fight he's about to have with Alexander Usyk, the rematch.
How's that break down? What's that, approximately $40 million to Usyk and $40 million to AJ?
Approximately $80 million in guaranteed purses. That's 2 times the value, 2 times the size of the pot for Fury versus Whyte.
And get a whiff of this. couple of days ago, Mike Coppinger tweeted,
DAZN has acquired the U.S. rights to Alexander Usyk versus Anthony Joshua's heavyweight title rematch on August 20th, sources tell ESPN. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia bought the rights to the event and were fielding offers from several networks, including ESPN.
ESPN, ain't that what Tyson Fury's fights are showing?
Yes, it is, and apparently ESPN wanted to get involved for this fight. They wanted to be in the Anthony Joshua business, even if it was just to show his upcoming rematch with Alexander Usyk. So what does that tell you?
I know what you're thinking, that Matchroom was trying to carry one of Tyson Fury's fights.
Yeah, they were, but that's only because Dillian White was involved. If not for that, Matchroom wouldn't have bothered to put a bid in for one of Tyson Fury's fights.
Where's your common sense?
Use your head. You see what Anthony Joshua was able to sell at Madison Square Garden in his American debut against Andy Ruiz Jr. And we know how the fight went, but the outcome of the fight isn't what we're talking about here. That's not the subject. The subject is marquee value. Anthony Joshua didn't need a high-profile opponent with a big name to sell out the Garden.
What he sold off his name alone.
Andy Ruiz was a late replacement.
Anthony Joshua was still able to sell out the Garden.
Sold it out of his name alone, whereas Tyson Fury cannot say the same here in the US of A. The fight that he had with Otto Wallin, the fight that he had with Tom Schwartz. Look at the gate receipts. Look at what it generated.
Oh yeah, he sold way more with Deontay Wilder, but that was with Deontay Wilder.
With Deontay Wilder. He didn't sell those fights by himself. He didn't do it alone.
They needed each other to sell because individually they couldn't match Anthony Joshua's star power, his drawing power.
We see the difference between what Tyson Fury sold off his name alone here in America and what he sold with Deontay Wilder, whereas Anthony Joshua, he didn't need a high-profile opponent to sell out a historic venue here in the US of A. So when Eddie Hearn says that Anthony Joshua is in fact a bigger draw and a bigger star than Tyson Fury, he's absolutely right.
Now, if he loses this rematch to Alexander Usyk, his stock takes a hit. But what if he wins?
If he wins, this fight between him and Tyson Fury becomes a conversation, yet again, and his star power.
His celebrity will only be amplified by becoming a 3-time heavyweight champion, by beating the odds.
Beating Usyk, avenging the loss. A lot of people don't like his chances. Better still, regardless of the naysayers and regardless of the doubters.
He's already a bigger star than Tyson Fury. If he wins, he's that much bigger.
That's just the truth. That's reality.
What's the status of you and Terrence Crawford's lawsuit, or Toprank and Terrence Crawford's lawsuit?
Well, it's a little technical. We asked that it be removed to a federal court, and the federal judge said no, it has to be in the state court. So they have to refile the case in state court, and this was 6 weeks ago, and they haven't. So I don't know whether the case is going forward or is not going forward. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, there's no case. I mean, no case from this. I'm not giving you an opinion on the merits of the case. I'm just saying there is no case because nothing's been filed. Mm-hmm. My feeling is that this lawsuit was really dreamed up by Kinahan and his people, because Crawford indeed had sent us an email saying that he and Kinahan were partners. This is before the Porter fight.
Oh, that's interesting.
For the most part, this isn't new news because Mike Coppinger broke this story weeks ago.
Bob Arum very recently spoke to Fred Hawthorne of Barbershop Conversations and let him know what's going on with the case, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot going on.
At least not much, since Mike Coppinger originally reported that the case was rejected in federal court. It must be refiled in state court. I told you guys from the very beginning that this lawsuit Terrence Crawford is filing in reference to what's supposed to be a racial bias from Top Rank.
There are certain elements of the case that seem like frivolities.
Or at minimum elements of the case that are going to be hard to prove in a court of law short of damning audio or video, that the case itself may not even get off the ground, and it appears that it still hasn't.
I can think of at least one reason as to why that is.
Terrence is supposed to be in the midst of negotiations for an Errol Spence Jr. undisputed title fight. They're all enthralled in that situation, and they may be so preoccupied with it they don't have the time at this time to refile this case in state court. Perhaps they will if things don't work out with Errol.
If that whole situation falls apart, they may dedicate their efforts to refiling this case and taking Toprank to court.
They might, if things with Errol Spence Jr. don't work out. If they do work out and they get the fight over the line, maybe this is something that the Terrence Crawford people might revisit beyond the Errol Spence Jr. fight, or maybe they'll just nix the whole goddamn thing altogether.
Because if they go through with this, Toprank has grounds for a countersuit.
Slander, libel, defamation of character. Toprank and Bob Arum can file a countersuit based on what Terrence Crawford's case is alleging, and unless Terrence Crawford can prove what he's saying,
things could get messy, things could get very expensive.
The real revelation here, in reference to this audio from Fred Hawthorne's interview with Bob Arum, is that Bob feels that it was Daniel Kinahan, suspected Irish crime boss Daniel Kinahan. He feels it was he who put Terrence Crawford up to this, though you'll notice that Brian Friedman...
I told you guys this before. That's the same Brian Friedman that represented Mikey Garcia when it came to his case against Toprank.
Where Bob Arum might think that it was Daniel Kinahan that put Terrence Crawford up to this, it may not have been Daniel at all. He might not even be involved. It might have been Terrence Crawford.
He might be acting independently, and he sought the legal counsel of the man who helped Mikey Garcia with his situation, though. How much help Mikey actually got depends on who you ask.
What did Mikey lose? Something like 2 or 3 years in this legal battle? By the time it was all over...
He lost a lot of time on this, and Toprank just decided to cut him loose. I think that's the way that it went.
Though not without it costing him a substantial amount of time. Time away from the boxing ring, time in his career, and time, ladies and gentlemen, time, folks. That's the one thing you don't get back.
Now, maybe Terrence Crawford will decide to call this whole thing off, provided things work out with Errol.
Showtime executive Stefan Espinoza very recently stated he feels there's better than a 50-50 chance that they get this fight over the line.
Better than 50-50? Well, how much better than 50-50?
Better still, if they get that fight over the line, perhaps the Crawford people might decide they don't need to revisit this situation based on all the money they stand to make from the Spence fight.
Or maybe they'll hold off revisiting this case until after the Spence fight.
In any event, when this news first broke, Ice told you, I'm not sure this case gets off the ground. And until further notice, it still hasn't. The merits of it haven't been evaluated yet because it hasn't even started.
Like I said, if it does, Toprank and Bob Arum have grounds to file a countersuit against Terrence Crawford.
Things could get messy, very expensive.